Where is God? By Arthur E. Leakey. Chapter 6. What kind of God can modern man worship? A small boy watched in dismay as a cat played with a mouse, finally killed it, and then ate it. Having been taught by his parents that God made everything, the boy was now prepared to ask a few more questions about life. So at the opportune time, he inquired of his father, "Did God make everything?" "Yes, son. God made all things." "Did he make the birds and the bees?" "Of course, son." "Did he make the little mice?" "Certainly, my boy." After a fairly long pause, the boy, with puckered brow, questioned, "Well, then, did God make the cat too?" Many people have found considerable difficulty in exercising belief in God because of the problem posed by cats and mice, to say nothing of man in modern war. Other people find it perfectly normal to experience a simple and profound faith in God despite all the long and ugly catalogue of strife, conflict, and apparent contradictions. It is wise to remember that all thinking people have had some doubts. We think there never lived an atheist who did not at times, and many times, doubt his unbelief. Let no believer think that the unbeliever has no struggle with the unbelief. It was Young who wrote, "By night an atheist, half believers, a God." The question that we seriously approach here is, what kind of God can an intellectual, intelligent modern person worship? Man is created with a deeply implanted instinct to worship some intelligent power greater than himself and all men. Whom shall he worship? Scientist Pierre Lacombe Denoy is quoted as follows: "Man would accept the hardest disciplines if he could be convinced that there is no conflict between religion and science. If his intellectual, rational self did not always enter into collusion with his sentimental, intuitive self." Time, February 24, 1947. This is indicative of the intelligent man's longing for God and for something definite to be believed and practiced. We cannot fully share the confidence of our French friend that man would obey God if only there were no conflict between faith in him and some scientific dogma. We remember that there have always been millions who believe but do not obey. The devils also believe and tremble, James 2:19. They do not yield to the discipline of obedience. Unfortunately, a large segment of modern Christianity seeks a religious experience of ecstasy and feeling which is divorced from the rigors of discipline and subjection to the laws of God. Scientist Denoy really means that there are intelligent men today who crave an experience of certainty. This we truly believe. Nevertheless, belief needs to be made open, doubly certain, for surely there is so much so called faith which is unfounded, and confusion abounds on every hand. To the sincere seeker for truth are the words written, "That I might make thee known the certainty of the words of truth." Proverbs 22:21. There are for us here to consider 5 qualities or attributes which God must needs have it. He is to be sincerely worshipped by modern, intelligent man. A God of power. There is one thing God has said. Twice have I heard him say it. The power belongs to God. Psalm 62:11. We would be safe in saying that 1,000 times in 1,000 ways has every man seen the manifestations of power. Power is everywhere. Watch the fiery ball of the setting sun as it slides down beyond a hill of mountain ranges, disappears on the far horizon of a prairie wheat field, descends at the yonder edge of a plain or desert, or seems to sink into the great sea. A giant atomic power plant is a sort of center about which our Earth swings at a distance of more than 90 million miles. We travel around this gigantic solar racetrack at a speed of more than 1,100 miles a minute. Men talk of flying planes 1,000 miles an hour, faster than the speed of sound. The simple fact is that we are all flying nearly 70 times that fast in our own journey around the sun. What keeps this Earth traveling at 1,110 miles a minute, going peaceably on its path around the sun instead of heading off into space and possible collision and oblivion? The answer is power. Take a piece of string and tie it to a spool. Hold the end of the string and whirl the spool in a circle about your head. Now let go of the string. Does the spool keep traveling around and around? Every child has learned by experience that the spool will strike off in some direction of its own, and he is fortunate if the window pane is not broken or other damage done. What kind of string would it take to hold the Earth in its path around the sun? The total attraction between the Earth and the sun amounts to an amazing pull of 3,600,000 millions of tons. This would be the breaking strain of a steel rod more than 3,000 miles in diameter, a force inexplicably exerted through or transmitted by apparently empty space. That cable, 3,000 miles in diameter, would be more than 90 million miles long, holding the Earth in place at its silent race of over 560 million miles every year. Men have called this invisible cable gravitation. It is strong enough to hold a great planet in its course, yet a chirping sparrow can fly through it with the utmost ease. In fact, while the sun exercises this tremendous pull on the Earth, people, objects, etc., are not drawn off the Earth by it, but on the contrary, are held on the Earth by the operation of a very same kind of power pulling the other way. Believe it or not. That may sound like 2 minus 2 equals 4, but it is the way of power. With interest, we read this from the Bible. By him all things consist. Colossians 1:17. Upholding all things by the word of his power. Hebrews 1:3. Join the more than 2 million visitors who annually journey to gaze in awe and wonder at the surging, plunging power of Niagara Falls. Watch 200,000 second feet of water throw themselves in a thunderous, foaming glee of sheer drop of over 150 feet to the riverbed and rocks below. You too will understand why men have harnessed only a small fraction of this giant's capacity, producing more but a mere million horsepower in a hydroelectric plant, lest they mar the glory of this marvelous spectacle of nature. A poem about Niagara. Flow on forever in thy glorious robe of terror and of beauty. Yea, flow on, unfathomed and resistless. God hath set his rainbow on thy forehead, and the cloud mantled around thy feet, and he doth give thy voice of thunder power to speak of him eternally, bidding the lip of man keep silence, and upon thine altar pour incense of awe-struck praise. By Lydia Howard Sigourney. We're thrilled by the magnificent throbbing power of the steam. We pale at the ravaging power of unquenchable fire. We are mystified by lightning, burning, shocking, uncanny power of electricity. We tremble before tornadoes and flee before floods. We feel galvanized, half thrilled and half frightened by the fantastic play and crackling of lightning. We look aghast at the destructive power of terrible explosives. We stand in silent awe before yet unharnessed power of the ceaseless ocean tides. And when we look into that vast dome of night's starlit sky, floods of gentle wonder sweep over the soul, and unresisting, the heart bows in humility that borders the realm of worship. At Sagamore Hill, Theodore Roosevelt and William Beebe used to play a little game together. As Beebe tells it, after an evening of talk, we would go out on the lawn where we took turns at an amusing little astronomical rite. We searched until we found, with or without glasses, the faint heavenly spot of light mist beyond the lower left-hand corner of the great square of Pegasus, when one or the other of us would then recite, "That is the spiral galaxy in Andromeda. It is as large as the Milky Way. It is one of 100 million galaxies. It consists of 100 billion suns, each larger than our own." After an interview, Colonel Roosevelt would grin at me and say, Now I think we are small enough. Let's go to bed. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs of figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and the diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause at the lecture room, how soon unaccountable I became and tired and sick, till rising and gliding out I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. Walt Whitman. He who can worship God will of necessity worship a God of power. Power is everywhere. Power belongeth to our God, the God of the Bible. Created beings who never sleep by day or night chant in heavenly rhythm before the throne of God. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. Revelation 4:8. Of tremendous personal significance to each of us is this question and its answer. Who is it that cometh, traveling in the greatness of his strength? I that speak is in righteousness, mighty to save. Isaiah 63:1. God is a mighty reservoir of saving grace for the needs of all men everywhere. He has literally surrounded this earth with the atmosphere of his grace and power. Breathe it, receive it. A God of wisdom. When one reflects on the total information contained in all the books which men have written, he marvels at the tremendous amount of sheer knowledge possessed today by the human race. Add this to the total achievements of the race, and one stands in no small amazement. Look at a linotype machine. Could you make one? Do you understand one? Watch a giant newspaper press with paper rolling through it at 50 miles an hour, coming out printed, folded, and ready to go. Can you get through your mind the intricacies of that marvel of engineering skill? Add to these watches, radios, telephones, automobiles, jet and rocket engines, dynamos, radar, and so on. Then think of the science of astronomy, botany, zoology, chemistry, mathematics, medicine, and music. Consider the fields of philosophy, history, literature, and religion. Do not overlook everyday cooking, farming, building, and manufacturing of every kind. A man spends his lifetime in one field of knowledge. He has all the advantage of accumulated knowledge from the past. He grows old and gets ready to die. What does he say? Feel like a child playing with pebbles on the seashore, with the vast ocean of knowledge yet undiscovered. Of Solomon it was said, he was wiser than all men, 1 Kings 4:31. He studied plant life, birds life, fish life, insect life, everything he saw or thought of. When the Queen of Sheba visited him, she exclaimed, "The half was not told me," 1 Kings 10:7. Solomon wrote 3,000 proverbs, wise, terse sayings. If anyone thinks a proverb is easy to write, let him try writing one that will be quoted by people 3,000 years from now. Then write 2,999 more. Whence cometh not wisdom? And God gave Solomon wisdom, 1 Kings 4:29. God's wisdom is seen everywhere in the commonest things. Pumpkins do not grow on trees, though someone wrote of a man who thought that they should. Elephants do not have wings and whiz through the air to perch on the rooftops. Even the prickly sandburr, hated by every barefooted boy, grows best when soil needs to be kept from drifting. The yucca moth lays her eggs in the seed pod of the yucca plant. Pollen fertilizes the accomplishment of the plant by the action of the moth. When the eggs hatch, the larvae feed on the seed of the plant. Thus, the continued existence of each type of life is dependent on the other. The moth dies before her eggs are hatched, so she never could have learned by observation. Whence came her wisdom? God asked Job, "Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, or stretch her wings toward the south?" Job 39:26. Man is finite. Wisdom is infinite. He who would worship God will of necessity worship a God of wisdom. Wisdom seen on every hand. Blessing and glory and wisdom. be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. Revelation 7:12. Here are 5 gems for memory. The price of wisdom is above rubies. Job 28:18. The fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. Job 28:28. Teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Psalms 90:12. The wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. 1 Corinthians 3:19. Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. Jeremiah 9:23 and 24. When the great astronomer Kepler gazed into the skies through the giant telescope, he said, O God, I am thinking thy thoughts after thee. Acquaint thyself with God, if thou wouldst taste his works. Admitted once to his embrace, thou shalt perceive that thou wast blind before. Then I shall be instructed, and thine heart, made pure, shall relish with divine delight, till then unfelt what hands divine have wrought. Cowper, The Task, Book 5. End of Part 1.